Greetings, hi, TheWarOwl greets you, and welcome to another Vlogy vlog. This time I'm going to be chatting with you fine folks about map design, level design inside of Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and games like Counter-Strike competitive games. So first of all, you may have noticed there's a few differences in this video than my previous ones. Video quality and this footage behind me. I'm coming up with a different way to record footage, and I'm trying to get the quality higher. The only thing I'm worried about in this one is the sound quality. I have a little mic here, a little bit off screen. How's it going, guys? And normally when I do a voice recording, I can talk directly into the microphone and make it sound all sexy and awesome and smooth. This time it's a little bit out of the way. I am standing. I know I do have legs. It's crazy. Using a different camera and using a different recording method for the gameplay footage. So let me know in the comments what you think about the quality, hopefully, upgrades that are going on right now. So let's hop into it. Level design in Counter-Strike. I've been playing this game for a long time, playing a lot of online games, and there's a lot of things in level design that are very important, but we don't consciously recognize. We understand it as we're playing it, but we don't consciously think about it. And there's a number of different things that I think make a great Counter-Strike map or a great competitive map itself. The first we'll talk about is landmarks. Landmarks are super important in a game like Counter-Strike. Maps need to have focal points, things that you can look at from anywhere in the map and are very visible, and you can sort of tell where you are on the map, even without radar, just by having that focal point there. So a good example of that is the radio tower on Overpass. You see it from nearly everywhere on the map. You know what it means, and also landmarks are great up in the sky for lining up smokes and flashes, specifically in Counter-Strike. So you kind of need something on the map to line up to. There are certain maps that don't have a lot of these, like Nuke. I was trying on the new Nuke to find different smokes and flashbang throws, and it was really difficult because a lot of the time, I just found myself lining up in the clouds and lining up in the sky, and it was just a blue sky, and there was really no way to come up with good smokes and flashes, and where I was trying to do it, which was from T-Roof. So when you have a map like, another good one is Inferno. You have that bell tower. That bell tower is visible from all over the place. It's a landmark. You know what it means. If you see the bell tower, you know what map you're on. Those types of things are very important for Counter-Strike maps. The second thing we'll talk about is the uniqueness of each and every room inside of a map of Counter-Strike. Now, every single map in Counter-Strike is very unique. There's such a wide range of different maps and locations and styles on every single one. The models are different. Look at Nuke, and then compare that to Dust 2. Very different styles, very different looks to them. Now, compare that to Mirage, very different style. It gives them a little tropical, a little more tropical style. Then we take a trip down to Train, and we get into that industrial style. A lot of maps, a lot of amateur maps in Counter-Strike are that industrial style. But anyway, that's not the point. I'm trying to say that every single room within that map and within that theme needs to be unique. It needs to be its own room. So you don't it doesn't all blend together. So in a map like Mirage, as you're walking around, you may think, oh, this kind of all looks the same, but it really doesn't. When you're in Palace looks distinctly different from any other part of the map, and you know it's Palace. It looks like a palace, so you can call Palace. Or when you're inside of the shop, it looks like a shop, it looks like a bazaar. That's shop, right? Every single room in the map is so completely different from each other that you can do call-outs. You can say window room because there's a window in it. Now, a lot of the maps that have come out with a new one, they don't have this. For example, Empire. I can't tell where I am in that map at all when I was playing it. But the good maps in Counter-Strike, every single room is unique and has its own characteristics to where you can call them. Now, we contrast that with something like a MOBA. And level design in a MOBA, it doesn't really matter in a MOBA because every single map in a MOBA is the same. You have the 3 lanes, you have the towers at certain points in the lanes, you can do all your callouts, you can do everything like that. The jungle is where it gets a little bit interesting, but at the same time, it's not as important in a game like that. But a game like Counter-Strike, every single room needs to be its own room and have its own feel. It's so that you can do those callouts. You can't have everything blend together. The next concept of map design I'm going to talk about is the optimization of details to functionability. Now, if you're a mapper, you may think I'm talking about optimizing the map, making sure you don't drop no frames or nothing like that. That's not what I'm talking about. That, I think, is a prerequisite to even having a map being played. You need to make sure that it plays properly. You don't turn around and look at a certain spot and boom, lose all my frames. It's not good. You don't want to lose them frames. So that's something that's like, that you need to know how to do with mapping. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that we, the players, notice and what makes a map great and what makes a map, I think, worthy of being in the active duty of Counter-Strike to be played not only competitively, but just played by people in the game and just like an official map. So what I'm talking about is making sure that the visuals of the map, the details of the map, don't get in the way of the gameplay. I talk about this a lot in a lot of my videos when I'm talking about the maps. There's been a move lately, and when I say lately, I mean the last like 10 years, because I'm old. But anyway, to more away from brush-based entities and toward more models. So what I'm saying is that there's more complex objects to make them look better. In my opinion, I don't think that there should be model-based cover. This is something I believe a lot of people disagree with me on, but I believe that model-based cover, if the hitbox of the object doesn't line up completely with the object itself, is a recipe for disaster. Basically, you'll have instances where you're shooting, you see an object, and you're like, I'm going to shoot through this part of the object, and it turns out you can't because there's an invisible wall there. Terrible. I think when you're talking about detail, the great maps, and these are things that have been changed over time. This seems to be something that Valve has figured out over time beyond when these maps were originally released. So a lot of times the backgrounds that players are standing behind are very complicated in order to make it look really great. And that's not good for gameplay. Ideal gameplay is a background to where it's a solid color and you can directly make out targets. You don't have a color that looks kind of like the CTs on the map or looks like the Ts on the map. You can immediately make out that there is a player there. So what they've done is they've gone through a lot of these maps and they've changed them around and even like put white paint on the backdrops of certain positions to make players stand out. This is another aspect that makes a map great. The ability for target recognition, getting rid of the visual style in favor of more functionality. And you can have that visual style, it just doesn't have to get in the way. And this is where the real art of making a competitive map, because you're not just making a you're not just making like an art project. You're not making a map where you're going to walk through and sort of marvel at the scenery or something that would work for a single player game. This is not a single player game. This is a competitive game. People take it very seriously like a sport. So the real skill and artistry comes from that balance of details to functionality to where players are able to walk around the map unhindered by things. You don't want to brush up against crap on the wall. You don't want these things on the wall. You walk into them and you get stuck. You get snagged. Used to be on the old Nuke. There were a lot of places like that, things that you would walk on. What they've gone for those sorts of things, you're walking by objects and you sort of snag on them. They've added invisible walls that are very smooth. So as you walk against them, you kind of like slide off of them instead of getting stuck. All of these things are what make a map great in Counter-Strike. Last thing we'll talk about is layout. Now, this is arguably one of the most important things and also one of the simplest things, but it's also something that can be the most screwed up. When we look at layout and great layouts in Counter-Strike, the one that pops into my mind immediately is Dust 2. Dust 2, in my opinion, is the greatest competitive map ever created for any game. It has been used as a template for competitive maps. So many maps inside of Counter-Strike itself are directly based on the layout of DE Dust 2. And it's such a simple layout, it has been around for a long time. Over a decade we've been playing on this map, and it has been relatively unchanged for a reason. It is such a great map. Now, when you look at Dust 2 from a top-down perspective, it looks like a four-leaf clover. So you have this middle area where everything intersects, and then you have these clovers out on the outside. This is the clover style of a design. Inside of Valve's official How to Make a Good Map pages, which they wrote pages like How to Make a Good Map in Counter-Strike. They referred to this design as the Foursquare Design. So we may want to refer to it as the Foursquare Design, since that's what Valve calls it, be a little bit more official. So this Foursquare Design, which I think looks like a four-leaf clover, because this is a nice way to think about it. You have the CT spawn and the T spawn on different sides of this clover, and then you have the bomb sites on the two leaves of the clover. What this does is opens up options for the terrorist, as well as options for the counter-terrorists as they rotate. It's so simple, yet it's so great, and it makes for such a great map. Look at the maps that also follow this. Mirage is another map that follows the clover outline. It's a little bit modified and a little bit more interesting, a little bit more complex. And I actually really like the layout of Mirage because of that, because it makes the rotate so much more easier. We have 3 lanes of rotating instead of just the 2 for the counter-terrorists. And then we look at a map like Inferno. It has it as well, but it's a little bit more scrunched and simplified. Now let's look at a map that does not follow this, and I think takes away from it. And that is Cobblestone. Personally, I really don't like the layout of Cobblestone because it doesn't give a lot of options to both the terrorists and the counter-terrorists. Let's look at it from the perspective of the Ts. As we're pushing into bomb site B, we're going B long, we think, oh man, there's a lot of CTs here. Let's rotate out of here. Or let's try and fake them here at B. You can't really rotate out of there. Look at the distance you have to travel to get all the way back over to A site. You're pretty much just committed to bomb site B or bomb site A, depending upon what you're doing. Now, they added the drop zone, and that adds a little bit of variety to the map, but not a lot. And then we look at it from the CT perspective. There's only one way to rotate. You're not going to rotate all the way around. It will take forever to get all the way to the other bomb site through the spawns, and it's just a real pain on that map to do anything beyond just the standard. A great map in Counter-Strike is where every single round feels unique, and it unfolds in a unique way. You think, okay, there's players here, we need to move this way, we need to smoke off this spot, maybe we'll leave a player here. It opens up a lot of possibilities for great gameplay. Cobblestone does not have that. So that's what makes a great layout, in my opinion, opening up options. And look at this. If you look at Dust 2 and you look at the Clover, the rotates for the CTs and the terrorists take generally the same amount of time. If a counter-terrorist player rotates on Cobblestone, he'll reach his destination far, far before a terrorist player reaches his destination. A great map has it so the rotates are the same distance for both teams if they take that position. So there's also maps that don't follow this Clover outline, which are super awesome and super unique, and work, and they work in their own way. One of those maps is DE Nuke, and I really like DE Nuke for that. DE Nuke is just a weird concept that somehow works. You have a building, both teams spawn outside of the building on either sides, and the bomb sites are in the building, and you stack them one on top of the other. It works great, the rotates are awesome, and the options for the Ts have really been opened up with the new version of Nuke, in my opinion. And I think, now stay with me on this one, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Minus Cobblestone plus Nuke. Minus Cobblestone plus Nuke. That's my suggestion, I'm throwing it out there. I think Nuke is just an all-around better and more unique map than Cobblestone, based solely upon Cobblestone's layout. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my little vloggy vlog talky talk. I am TheWarOwl, and I still have no closer.